Good morning, everybody. No, I don't have any intro or a soundtrack or anything. We're both Adam and I have some new devices, right? Adam, you have a new cell phone. I have a new computer. I mean, we haven't chatted with each other since we've gotten these, and I literally just started hooking this thing up this morning, and I have no idea how this is going to go. I can't find anything on this computer. I don't know what's going on. It's just driving me crazy right now. So, and Adam Jarchow, last time you and I chatted was what? I think it was in May. I put up an announcement that you and I were going to be chatting today, and it was kind of cool to go back through and look at all of our chats that we've had. I forgot that we first did one about 2 years ago. I don't know if you remember any of those, if you looked at any of those links, but it was kind of a blast from the past, man.
I remember when we used to get to do these live before the COVID, and now we have to do them on these stupid devices.
Yeah. Oh, you mean in studio?
Right.
Yeah, that was a lot better. And I forgot Dad was here, part of one of those. So, but since it has been a while, and there's a lot of stuff I wanted to just chat with you about. Obviously, like COVID stuff, the mask order, the lawsuits, the SCOTUS stuff happening, things in Wisconsin, elections. It's been a while. It's been a minute since you and I have chatted. So, what has happened in your life this summer? Pretty much it's been the whole summer since we've chatted last.
You know what I'm most interested in, Ben, is so I read this news story about Trump and his taxes, and he paid Ivanka apparently like $750,000 in consulting fees from his company, and people were all worked up about this. And I was just wondering, how much do you pay your dad, Terry Dryden, to be a consultant to avoid taxes?
Nothing.
Oh, come on.
No, I do. I pay for what? What?
Are you going to release your tax returns so we can all see this?
Fine. I don't even know where they are. So here's how taxes work for DrydenWire and for Ben Dryden. I track everything on a spreadsheet. I keep receipts and all this stuff. And at the end of the year, I hand it to my wife. So step 2, she fills out something. I don't know. Step 3, we call our tax people and they do it. So I literally have no idea how any of the process works. But
in all seriousness, I joke about that, but it is, you can tell. I call this silly season. That season of about 6 weeks and closer to an election, I call silly season, because you get all of this silly stuff that comes out. Anybody that knows just the tiniest little bit about tax law knows that even if Donald Trump or the Trump Corporation, whatever it's called, paid Ivanka as a consultant and therefore got a business deduction, right? That's what they were talking about. Mm-hmm. You get a deduction when you pay employees or consultants. Mm-hmm. Every business owner, including me, does that. When Ivanka gets that income, what does she do? She has to pay taxes on it. Yeah. So either way, taxes are paid. So you can dislike Donald Trump, and I get all of that. But that was one of the more silly stories I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I pay my mom. She does. She writes stories, and she does her Diane's Kitchen, and so yeah, I pay her. And then again, I don't know how it works, but I know that she uses the same tax people that we do. So they'll call and say, okay, how much did you pay your mom for doing? Because she's not like on the payroll. We don't have, a payroll per se. It's just she's a subcontractor.
Right.
So I pay her, and I have to pay taxes on some of that, I'm sure. I don't know what it is. And then she has to claim it as well, and she must have to pay taxes on some of that too. So that's normal, right?
It is. It's very normal. So anyways, I found it silly. There's all kinds of silly stories that will arise related to every single political candidate that has an opponent over the next 6 weeks.
It's going to be fantastic.
Everybody will be trashed over the next 6 weeks.
I know it. It's great. And I saw that Jim Carrey is going to be, he's signed on for Saturday Night Live to play Joe Biden or to beat whatever for the whole year. And I was when you think about it, because Alec Baldwin has done President Trump. But President Trump, it's interesting. Like he could, so obviously Saturday Night Live, they try to, it's like a character artist. They just exaggerate things. I don't know, Donald Trump could pretty much just play himself because it's hard to really exaggerate that. And honestly, same thing with Biden. It's so funny. I mean, they're just so funny. These clips of him just like falling asleep or forgetting, there's the, I mean, this debate tonight's going to be epic.
You may not remember this, but do you remember in 2000 when George Bush ran against Al Gore?
Yeah.
And on Saturday Night Live, Darrell Hammond played Al Gore and Will Ferrell played George Bush. Yep. And they had a mock debate, right? And they said Jim Lehrer was the debate moderator, and they said, if you could, summarize your campaign in one word, what would it be? And Will Ferrell looks at the camera and says, strategery. It was priceless.
I know.
Al Gore was lockbox.
That's right, the lockbox. I forgot. My dad, we went to Chicago, my mom, dad, and I a few years ago, and he had the Garmin device, right? Man, but this was quite a few years ago. And he can download, I guess, different people that are talking. So instead of, in 100 feet, turn right, like the regular person, you can download these other ones. And he had one that was George Bush. I mean, it wasn't actually him, but someone. And it's, turn right. You have reached your justification. Oh, my goodness. It was just great. Like, I just wanted to drive around just so I could hear more of it.
Awesome.
So anyway, going back to the what else has been, in your life, what's been going on over the summer?
Yeah, so we've had a busy summer. My family and I, we, as you know, we run some small businesses, and they've been busy, and they're kind of hospitality businesses. One of them is a campground, and I think every person with a blue license plate from Minnesota has camped out in Wisconsin since like April. It's been crazy this summer, and we own a restaurant and event center, and that's been busy, and a couple of other things, and then. We've gotten out to do some fun stuff, gotten out on the boat, and my daughter had a goal this year. She's 7 to learn how to water ski because she wants to be on the ski team next year. So
7?
Yeah, she's done some loops on the lake and just started wakeboarding here a few weeks ago. And so, yeah, we've had a fun summer. How about you?
Well, first of all, 7 and she wanted to learn how to ski. Is that a normal age? I don't know. I didn't grow up on a lake.
It's not abnormal, that it's like anything, right? You can learn Spanish in a week when you're 7, but if you're old like us, it takes you 10 years to never learn it. So it's so easy for kids to learn things, and so hard when you get old like us.
Yeah. So this summer it's been weird, obviously, with COVID and masks and the kids at home, and Jarchow's mainly been working from home, and so that's been great, spending a lot of time with the family. It's just been weird. Mom and dad, of course, both had heart attacks within 2 months of each other, which is just nuts.
That's crazy.
But they're both doing, great. So that was quite a shock. That was a scare for all of us. But they're doing wonderful. My wife and I just had our wedding anniversary a couple weeks ago, and in 2 days, DrydenWire will have it'll be our 5th year anniversary on Thursday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's awesome. Good for you.
Well, thank you. Not sure what we should do, but...
Put papers out of business this summer. That was nice of you.
Nope. Yeah, seriously, that's crazy. The Washington County Register. No, actually, so one is in my area and one is in your area. The Ledger newspaper, or newspapers, I'm not sure if they have multiple ones. They've stopped or ceased their print publication, I think a few weeks ago, and I think this week is actually the Washington County Register's last paper, and it's nuts, man. The Register's been around for like 30 some years, I think.
As they say, Ben, you didn't hold the gun to their head; you just pulled the trigger.
You're making me feel badly.
I think it's just the way things are going, right? And I suspect it was exacerbated or sped up a little bit by COVID, that people are just doing more online and less with sort of that thing that you hold in your hand. And so it's probably the inevitable result of technological advance. It just is what it is.
Yeah, it is. Because I think a lot of it, and first of all, I've said it on the air, I've said it in articles, I've said it to people in private conversations, that buy a local paper. It costs you probably less than a cup of coffee a week. Support a business. Come on, they've been around forever. And everything that DrydenWire does was essentially to be the opposite of the paper. We don't want to. It's like Netflix or Hulu, but if one of them is free, you don't have to pick. So we don't want to cover local sports because newspapers do a great job of that, man. Half the paper, for crying out loud, is like pictures of your local sports teams.
Right.
So that's good, and we don't print meeting minute notices. I don't want to read that stuff, and honestly, I don't really think a lot of other people do. And plus you can find it online anyway. So we've just always tried to be the opposite. And okay, we want to cover stuff that normally they don't. But I think ultimately what it comes down to, the papers, is really two things. One is they still are living on the idea of, it's a nice Sunday morning. You're out on your back porch. You're overlooking the lake, a hot cup of coffee, and open up a paper. They're still basing it on an idea. And I love that idea, that thought. But who does that? Mm-hmm. Not that many people. And second, come on, man. It's like any product. If it's not a good product, you're not going to keep buying it.
Right.
So I think that's certainly the other part, where the content just wasn't there as much as it maybe used to be. And they're kind of stuck, right? Like, well, how do we make this transition? And I don't know. I hope they can all figure this out, because we can't have our local papers going out of business. That's just my opinion.
No. I mean, we absolutely need them to hold local officials accountable. It's just like you need the statewide papers to hold, statewide officials accountable. There's nothing worse than government in the dark. And to a large degree, if you don't have media, you have government in the dark. Yeah,
that's true. Who's going to keep Adam Jarchow accountable?
Thank goodness they kicked me out of office, so I don't need to worry about it.
So, yeah, how's the COVID stuff going? How's it going? This summer, you've had multiple businesses. How much did that affect your business?
Yeah, it's the weirdest summer we've ever had, because it's totally unpredictable. So first and foremost, you can almost never get the product that you order. So, for example, for a long time this summer, could not get Coors Light, right? We're a bar in northern Wisconsin. Can't get Coors Light. The food products that you try to order, half the time they're not available. Even paper products. I mean, it's just crazy, the kind of stuff that is just not available. Or you remember early in, I don't know, maybe April or May, we had this massive spike in meat prices. Well, if you sell cheeseburgers for a living, that impacts your business. And then you add to that, the business has been up and down. I mean, some Fridays and Saturdays at the restaurant, it's just so crazy you can't get in the door. And the next Friday, nobody shows up. So it's very difficult to understand how to staff that, how to purchase. And I don't really run those businesses. My wife does. And I think she's picked up some gray hair this year trying to figure out how to run them.
Yeah.
And the weirdest thing that's happened is on the event center side, we've had a handful of weddings. And some of the weddings are normal turnout. And some of them, it's like half of the guests that RSVP'd for this poor bride and groom don't show up. And they don't tell them. So they still have to buy the food. So let me tell you, if you get invited to a wedding and you're not going to go, let the poor people know food. It's just not fair to them.
Yeah. Just don't show up, or not. Just don't not show up. Let them know I'm not showing up.
Yeah, it's crazy. I can't believe people behave that way. I feel so bad for these, newlywed couples, and they're bringing for food that nobody's eating.
On the attorney side, have you been dealing with any? I think we talked about this one of the last times you were on, with any businesses contacting you saying, we need to figure something out. We're not going to be in existence here in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, we are. It's really sad. I haven't dealt with bankruptcy stuff. Sorry, I keep getting these things on my phone. I haven't dealt with bankruptcy stuff really since the Great Recession. And all of a sudden we're back doing bankruptcy work in the courts and collection work. And we've had a handful of it. It's not like the Great Recession, and hopefully it won't get to that point, but there are some serious struggles going on out there.
Well, with your keeping your attorney hat on, Governor Evers' his latest mask order. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think the last two have been a violation of the way our statutes work. And the reason I say that is it's not the mask order so much. You have to separate that. The mask order is a separate component of a totally standalone emergency declaration. And the way our statutes work is the governor has 60 days under his emergency powers, and then the legislature may extend that. And the legislature hasn't extended that.
Right.
So what the governor has done is declared successive states of emergency. And I think the way our statute reads, it's really, really clear that he does not have that authority. And of course, a governor kind of can do what a governor wants, as we've seen, until somebody actually stops them. So there's only two parties to stop the governor. One would be the legislature could come into session and revoke the emergency order. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Or litigants can file lawsuits. And there's a couple of suits going, one actually in Polk County that's going, and there's an injunction hearing next Monday that if the court issued the injunction, it would enjoin the emergency declaration, saying that it exceeded the governor's authority, just as I said, because he doesn't have the authority to extend his own declaration without an affirmative act of the legislature. So I think that'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. I think the legislature, for two reasons, hasn't revoked the declaration. They will tell you, legislative leadership will tell you, it's because if they revoke this illegal, in their view, illegal declaration, well, the governor could just come in the next day and issue another declaration. What their legislative leadership is saying is, well, we need the courts to put a stop to this. I think what's actually going on is we're 6 weeks away from an election, and they don't want their members to take that vote, so that because no matter how you vote, right? So if you let's just say you're a Republican and you vote that you want to uphold this declaration and the mask mandate, and there are some Republicans that would do that, well, they're going to get beat up by people who don't like that, right? But if they vote to revoke it, they're going to get beat up by people who do like it. It's a no-win.
Sure.
And I think that's my view. That's really what's going on, is they just don't want to take the vote.
So for example, if this was a year ago, so we're over a year till the next election, right? Do you think they would have?
Yeah. And I think if it's November 8th or 5th, any day after the election,
sure.
I think in the lame duck, I think they just don't want to do it before the election. They don't want that piece landing in people's mailboxes a month before an election.
Right. Yeah, it's well, I don't want to get to that part. Why do you think? I mean, Evers obviously knew. I mean, a lot of the laws and things, and the way that it's written, he had to know this was coming. Why do you think he did it? Does it have to do with this election, and he was forcing someone's hand, do you think, or it was this is what I truly think is right, and nothing political at all?
All of the above. So I genuinely believe that Governor Evers probably genuinely believes that the mask thing is helpful to stop or slow COVID. No matter what you and I might think about it or others might think about it, I tend to give politicians the benefit of the doubt, and maybe I shouldn't, but I think he probably actually believes that.
I think so.
Clearly his base believes that, and he was under tremendous political pressure to, quote, do something, right? And so this was a something that he could try to do, and some politics, because he knows that the Republican base does not like this, and that the base would put a lot of pressure on Republican legislators to act. And he was hoping, I think, that they would act so that he could say, look at those Republicans. Look what they did. They, ruined my efforts to stop COVID again. Look at these evil Republicans. So I think it's a little of everything, right? I mean, it's politics.
Yeah, and I really think it probably. All right, so we're just talking about politically here. Obviously, there are people that have COVID, and there's people across the state that are dying. So obviously, that's tough, man. But from just the political side, ever since the mask order, I mean, we're not seeing a decline. In fact, we're seeing a very large spike, and you could attribute that to a number of things. But I don't think that's helping on his side, right?
Yeah, no, I've made that argument on Twitter that, hey, what's going on here? I thought masks were kind of the be all end all, and all of a sudden we went from, about 6 or 7% positivity rate on a daily basis, all the way up to, I think we're at like 22%. Well, what happened? College kids are acting like college kids, right? They're in college and they're partying.
What?
and in their defense, CDC came out with numbers last week that showed the sort of the mortality rate. Mm-hmm. And among sort of college age people, the survival rate is something like 99.999%.
I did see that.
This can be deadly for people over 70. I think it was the survival rate was, it's still 99 or so percent, but much lower than the above 70, mm-hmm. or I'm sorry, below 70. And so I think a lot of college students just view it as, maybe I'll get sick, but I'll be fine. And so they're partying and having a good time, and therefore we've got some many more positive cases.
You know, I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty sure if I was 22 and, being a stupid guy, I don't think I'd care, which is horrible to say. Because like Drew and I mean, we've done whether you think masks work or don't or social, that's what we've been doing because we got kids and I got parents and man, I don't know. I just don't want I don't want it to be my fault that somebody that I know died. Now the odds of that are just astronomical, but still, same reason I don't get drunk and drive, right? I don't want to hit someone and kill them. I mean, what? So if we can do something on our part, but that I think just comes with a little bit of age. But I was 22 and I was in college. I don't think I'd care.
Right.
And how would we expect them to?
Right.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you that I'm not real sure that we've seen any evidence that the mask order is having a real, effect on slowing or stopping the spread.
Hey, so it looks like so Thomas Sorensen says, amazing to see an attorney that is also a health professional. LOL.
Yeah, I know. So long I always find these comments interesting that normal people are not allowed to comment even on numbers that CDC put out. Thomas, you didn't hear me say I think COVID is fake or anything like that. All I said is CDC, who I assume Thomas thinks is the experts here, put out these numbers. I quoted accurately those numbers. If Thomas has a problem with the numbers, let's talk about that. But instead, Thomas wants to make personal attacks because he's got nothing else. Yeah,
I get that all the time. We do our daily update, and only because people keep reading them. Well, and I don't know, people should probably know what's going on. But we do our daily update, and it's all from the Wisconsin DHS, and it's just a little snapshot. And, of course, there's a link. All the information, everything you want, go to their website. But it's just a snapshot of our 6-county radius. And, oh, my goodness, the emails I still get to this day. Every single day, and a lot of people aren't even commenting anymore negatively, but I still get emails or direct messages. It's like I'm not making these numbers up. That's what they say. I don't know, and it's not like I'm taking a side on this either. I don't care. That's my job. That's what they say, and there you go.
You don't like the numbers, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Jeepers. So how do you think this is going to end?
I don't know that it will. I mean, I just don't understand how we get from where you have thousands and thousands of cases to zero. I mean, it's a virus. I suspect that we'll live with this for a long time. And that's kind of been my point throughout this is we have to figure out a way to live with this without destroying schools and students, without destroying small businesses and livelihoods. We can't just be in lockdown perpetually. We have to figure out who are the vulnerable populations and how do we protect them? And oh, by the way, if we can, come up with a vaccine to treat that, great. If there are some mitigation efforts that can help protect vulnerable populations, that's what we ought to do. And I've been saying that since March. I've seen no evidence to make me believe that this is going away. I mean, to the contrary, even in places like New York, where the cases had gone way down, they're having a little bit of a resurgence. Well, I don't know why. As Thomas points out, I'm not a doctor, but I assume it's something to do with it's fall. The weather's cooler, it's damper. People get sick. It's flu season. I think DHS says, hey, flu season's coming. You have to be even more careful about flu and COVID and those kind of things. That makes sense to me. That's when people get sick, in the winter.
Yep. Mike Schaefer has something. All recent studies show that masks help slow the spread if people would just wear. What you should be talking about is the failure of the Democratic governor and the Republican leaders to sit down together and come up with a strategy that all can support. Okay, that's legit, right?
So I would 100% agree. And you and I talked about this back in March,
we did,
right?
Yeah.
So what irritates me about what I will call the Democrat position on this issue with the governor and the mask order is imagine if Donald Trump was our governor and he just said, oh, it's an emergency, we're going to do X. Or if Scott Walker was our governor again and he said, it's an emergency and we're going to do X and we're going to keep re-upping this emergency and I'm going to skip the legislature. That's a bad position. This is like Democrats now regretting that Harry Reid got rid of the filibuster for the Supreme Court nominees, right? These things always come around to bite you. So you might think, oh, this mask mandate is really important and we should do this. Fine. That's a legitimate policy position. But you should also convince your legislators of that. And the governor and the legislature should sit down. We should not be governing by executive order. Even if you're a Democrat and you love this executive order, someday there will be another Republican governor and you will not like the executive order that person passes. Yeah. And so we should be united as Republicans and Democrats that there's a way to do this. We give a governor a little bit of time, right, when there's an emergency, because you need that to deal with exigent circumstances. We are 6 months into this. It might be a crisis, but it's not an emergency. And so in that period of time, the legislature and the governor should have figured this out. They haven't. Shame on them. But there's an election to deal with that. We don't deal with it with illegal executive orders.
When you were in the legislature, if you can recall, from what you know, what's going on now, I'm sure you know a lot of people are still whatever, and they're down there. Is this the worst you've seen it, or it's normal? Like you were there when Scott Walker was in, and then the Democrat, whatever. Is this? This is SOP, man, standard operating procedure. This is just how it goes, or this is like almost alarming.
Yeah, no, it's actually not the worst, because remember, we had Act 10 and we had, right, Democrats running to Illinois to not, be in the Senate to take a vote. We had 100,000 protesters. That was during Governor Walker. We had the recalls. And then when I was in the legislature, we did right to work, more protests. It's been a very contentious relationship. But remember, that's the point, right? Our government is supposed to move slow. Our government is supposed to require compromise. Our government is supposed to require kind of this making of the sausage that nobody likes to see, because otherwise you just kind of have a king. We're supposed to have this slow, methodical process of governing where we butt heads. Adams and Jefferson founded this country together, and then they didn't speak for 40 freaking years. Right? I mean, this is not new. Yeah. This is the dawn of the Republic. We've had these political battles, and that's a good thing, and we should stop thinking that it's not.
Well, I think most people would agree with everything you just said, with one exception. It's fine that it works slowly, but it doesn't seem like it's working slowly. It just isn't working at all.
Yeah, and maybe it's not, but remember, leadership means leading. And, you can think what you will about Tommy Thompson. And I have serious policy disagreements with some of the policies that Tommy did when he was governor. But he governed in a time of divided government during some portions of his administration. And you know what Tommy would do? They're in the same building, right? He'd get out of the governor's wing, and he'd walk down and talk to legislators. He'd pop into their offices. He would work out deals. And that's how you have to deal with this during divided government. I mean, you can't govern in a way where, I wish my party was in control of the legislature. That's great. You can wish that all you want. But at the end of the day, if they're not, you have to figure out a way to compromise. That's just how it works in divided government.
President Trump announced his SCOTUS pick. What were your thoughts on that?
I think it's really interesting. Of course, I'm a conservative, and I love the idea of having another conservative justice on the court. I think it's good for the rule of law. I think it's good for, the things that you and I have been just talking about, where we let legislators make law and not judges or governors or presidents. I think that's a good thing. I don't know much about this nominee. She seems, from what I've read, bright, very well qualified, sort of meets all of the standards that you would normally meet. But I can't tell you that I know a lot about sort of her judicial theories or her policy type theories. I really don't know. I mean, Trump has done a pretty good job and earned my trust when it comes to judicial nominees. I think Kavanaugh and Gorsuch have been good nominees, and his circuit court nominees have been good. So I'm inclined to trust him. What's interesting is the politics of it. That is the interesting part to me, is right before an election is the politics of, do you confirm? Do you not confirm? What does a senator like Susan Collins do? Right, from Maine. Maine is typically a Democrat state. Republican senator voted for Kavanaugh. Does she vote no? What does that do to her turnout, to her base?
Right.
I mean, it's really an interesting political dynamic.
That's what I've been paying attention to the most, right? Because there's a lot of, I know a lot of faith-based people in our area, including some pastors. I've had some conversations with and asking about not who you're voting for, but I can tell you there is, for the first time, a lot of them have either, well, some say, I'd still vote Republican because of their, a lot of times this is like an abortion-related issue, like pro-life stuff, but there are some that are, I don't know if I can vote for anyone. So it almost seems like Trump has lost some of the quote-unquote church, right? Mm-hmm. But, boy, an opportunity to have another conservative on the Supreme Court that may change some people's minds. So then the question is, and I'll present that question to you, I've heard that he wants to get it through before the election. That would be ideal that's what President Trump was saying. But would it be beneficial to have that confirmation after the election? Essentially, it's going to kind of force more people to go out and vote. I don't like Trump, but boy, I really want that conservative on the Supreme Court. What's the best play here? What's the smart move?
Yeah, I don't think it would actually force people to go out and vote because remember we'd have 2 or 2.5 months of a lame duck session where they could still confirm this nominee even after the election. They could come back in November and confirm the nominee. Their session doesn't end until January or something. So I actually think from a purely political standpoint for the Republicans, it would be a mistake to wait until after the election because a huge part of the Republican base for decades now, really since Roe, have voted based on the idea of having conservative judges. And so if the Senate did not get this done, I think the base would be very, very upset. And we all talk about independents and the swing voter, right? But at the end of the day, if your base doesn't show up, you're toast.
Yeah, right.
So, I think it's going to be really important for them to show up. And I think that's why Mitch McConnell, within a few days, the Senate Majority Leader, came out and said, yeah, I've got the votes and we're going to have a confirmation. I think Lindsey Graham, as the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, is starting hearings next week or week after next. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a raucous battle through October. It's going to be one of the more interesting Octobers we've had leading to a presidential election.
So speaking of that, the last thing I've written down, I wanted to ask you about the debate. I heard this morning on the news, CBS, so I don't know where they got this from. I'm assuming somewhere. But they're expecting 100 million people to watch the presidential debate tonight. What percentage of those 100 million, so obviously just a percentage, are their minds going to change?
Oh, zero.
Right. That's what I was thinking too. I'm like, it's not going to change anybody's mind, right? You've already made up your mind. This is just like a rap battle. You just want to see these two go after each other. Just, it's like entertainment, but I'm not going to learn anything.
Do you know anyone, Ben? I mean, honestly, do you know anyone who doesn't know who they're voting for at this point?
One person.
I don't know anyone. I mean, I really think the undecided vote is like 1 or 2%, and most of this campaign is now about getting turnout.
And just to be clear, the person that I know that hasn't made up their mind, it isn't about who to vote for. It's about this would be the first time in this person's life that they've never voted, so they just don't know if they're even going to vote. So that they've been having this, internal battle with themselves. Like, I don't like either, and usually it's lesser of evils, but for them, it's just really bad. But yeah, no, everybody's pretty much made up their mind.
Yeah.
So why is 100 million people going to watch this?
I don't know. I'm not going to.
I'm not.
Are.
What's that?
I'm not going to watch it, but I know a lot of people are.
Well, 100 million, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be in.
No. Again, it's like a rap battle. There's no, I don't know. They both just say one thing, and people respond to that, and you just want to see. I think people just want to see is Biden going to make a mistake, wrong stuff. They just want to kind of see that, and then they want to see Trump saying something stupid, right? And that's really, this is why we're watching a debate. I thought a debate was, to debate stuff, right. But I don't think anyone's watching it to actually learn anything.
Not very many. I mean, every once in a while, a good moderator will elicit a candid response from a candidate that drops their guard for a moment. And every once in a while, some personality trait will come out. I go back to the Bush-Gore thing. Remember the debates when they were standing on the stage and Al Gore got real close to George Bush and was standing right next to him, and George Bush kind of looked over at him and said, well, hey there.
Yeah.
And Al Gore was kind of huffing. Going, and the news talked about that,
sure,
day after day after day. And I think it had an impact on that election. And of course, Florida was a 500 vote election that swung that one way or the other. So there can be little things that I guess change people's mind or motivate people to vote or not to vote. But for the most part, I think it's canned nonsense.
Well, and yeah, that's a good point. What you brought up, and all the debates that we've ever seen before, none of them were Donald Trump. Right, and that's kind of like the X factor right there. I think it's not necessarily that people wouldn't vote for Biden, which that's fine. I mean, people want to vote for him. I'm sure he'd be great, wonderful, whatever. But boy, President Trump, he's so polarizing. Like you talked before, George Bush. Some people make fun of him for this, or they liked him about this, or even Al Gore, some good, some bad, but they weren't polarizing. And that's the interesting part about. Again, 100 million people in that. It's going to be nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the commentary is afterwards.
Yeah, I actually may have to go on Twitter and just watch all the stuff while it's live.
Watch all the hot takes that are all turned
It's
up.
gonna be great. Awesome. You know what we should do? Because we're up against it here already, and I'll have to look at my calendar. When the election obviously is on a Tuesday, November 3rd, I think. Before that, we should have you back on, so about a month or something, and let's go through and let's make some picks for our local election stuff.
Owe me a steak or whatever.
A TV steak dinner. Got it.
A TV steak dinner. Maybe I'll pull you back.
We should go through each one and then just make our picks. I'm terrible, so like if you ever want to know who's going to win, just ask me, and then the other person will win because I rarely get them right.
Do you have an idea? You don't have to say it, but do you have an idea who's going to win, Trump or Biden? Do you have your thoughts? Do you have like a
if you ask me, right, because this is not like political inside stuff here. If you asked me a week and a half ago, I would have said Biden. Now, with the Supreme Court nomination or that vacancy, it's Trump slightly, but boy, that can change fast. But yeah. I thought he was finished a week and a half ago. I really did.
What I like to watch is on some of these websites, you can find the betting odds. People actually bet on this.
What?
Yeah. And the betting odds right now are running just ever so slightly in favor of Joe Biden. So it's really interesting for me to watch. I mean, like 51% Biden. It's like just about right down the middle. So
and that's
a cliffhanger.
It really is. So let me ask you: did the vacancy in the Supreme Court? A week and a half ago, who did you think was going to win?
I've kind of gone back and forth. So there was a time before kind of the George Floyd and the rioting that ensued that I thought Biden was kind of pulling ahead. And I think the Democrat response to that was very bad politically. And you've seen them come out a little bit here recently and change their tune, be a little bit more pro law enforcement and that kind of stuff. And I think that's polling driven. I think they've seen people say, yeah, we're all for political protest, but we're not cool with burning buildings down and looting. So we should not do that. I think that's really had a negative impact. And so there was a while there that I would have said Trump. And I think right now, I'd probably put it at a 50-50. I think we're right in toss-up territory.
Wow.
You look at all of the polls. I don't care what it says nationally, right? Biden's ahead nationally in every single national poll by 5-8 points. Sure. But that doesn't matter. We don't vote nationally. We vote state by state by state. So you have to watch Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Florida, Ohio. The same states we've always watched since you and I have ever paid attention to politics. And all of those polls, or nearly all of them, are very, very close. I mean, most of them have Biden slightly ahead, but a lot of them are margin of error. So to me, toss up.
Yep. And wasn't Hillary Clinton polling ahead everywhere before that election too?
Right. Yep. Exactly.
It's going to be awesome. Yeah, let's do this again here in a few weeks, like the week before the election, or a few days or something. We'll figure it out. Like the Tuesday or Wednesday before the election, or maybe even the day, like Monday morning, the day before. I don't know. We'll do something.
I'm in.
All right, cool. Hey, thanks so much, buddy. I love chatting with you.
You too. Have a good one.
All right, man. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Stay safe. Keep your social distance. And, of course, as always, have a blessed day.